Hey everyone, Tech Steve here, and this is the Sony Bravia 7. Of course, it comes with the nice remote control with the hotkeys. It's powered by the Google operating system, so you can do all the voice commands. Sony also has some of the best color science when it comes to just giving you a great picture on movies, gaming, and things like that. Now, this video is really all about showing you some demos, and we're going to cover SDR, HDR, audio, gaming, viewing angles, and all kinds of tests. So sit back and relax and let's get into it. So in this video, we're going to be using the 65-inch Bravia 7, but you can see that this is a 10-bit panel, and all the sizes all the way up to 85-inch all uses vertical alignment panels. So looking at the back of the TV, it's got that signature Sony square look to it. You also can mount it on the wall, but it will require this little adapter right here. These are little screws that goes into the back of it. On this side, we're going to find your power cord input. And I will tell you that the feet are multiple adjustable. So right now I have it down all the way down to the bottom here, but you can lift it up. And there's a center part right here, so you can put them in the middle so you can put it on a smaller stand. Now, as far as inputs, there's a USB 2.0, 3.0. There's also a input here, and you can use this TV with Bravia Sync. On some of their nicer center channels, you can actually connect it and control the center channel with the TV. There's 4 HDMIs. Keep in mind, input 1 and 2 are 60 frames per second. Input 3 and 4 are HDMI 2.1 that will support up to 120 Hertz. And this one is eARC, so you can hook up a soundbar. There's also a LAN connection, and you have some other connections here in case you want to hook it up to different control centers, as well as a TV tuner. And I like the fact that these feet are very wide, so the TV is very stable on the table. So I think you'll be fine as far as stability. We'll do an audio test later on, but I want you to show you that this TV does have this side firing tweeter, and this is going to help create a surround sound if you don't add a soundbar to it. Now, this TV is a little bit thicker on the sides, but the great thing about it is that it makes the frame a lot more rigid, and I really like that particular feature. First, we're going to take a look at SDR picture quality, and I'm going to be using an Apple TV. And the reason for this, I can put the TV in SDR mode, HDR mode, or Dolby Vision. So if you use the built-in applications, you won't have access to manually change it like I can on this video. And watching everyday TV, I do recommend you put the TV in standard mode and not cinema mode, because the TV won't look as good overall, in my opinion. And I would say that you're going to also get really good motion handling capabilities as well. So just watching your everyday sporting event, overall, I think the Bravia 7 is looking really good, but I will tell you that it all depends on the source that you're playing through it, especially if you're watching streaming content. And to give you an example of that, you can see on YouTube TV, you can see the different resolutions. So when I see 720p 60, I would say that this signal looks good, but not as good as it could be if the cameras in a broadcast wouldn't stop in the resolution on it. This is a 4K TV, which is 3840 by 2160. The resolution that's running through it is 1280 by 720. So the upscaling on this television really has to do a good job to make the TV look clear. Now we're going to take a look at Disney Plus, and some things you want to look at is you can see that some of the movies will support Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, and this is going to give you the very best picture quality. That's why I always recommend streaming. Watching this TV on SDR content, I think this television looks great. You're going to get very good highlights, great black levels, and you're going to be able to see all the details in it. So I moved the TV over to Vivid mode, and it brings out a lot of brightness, but almost too bright, kind of hurts your eyes. But if we go down here, we have standard mode. It's going to be for your everyday TV watching, but the cinema mode is going to be best for watching movies. Now, Sony does have a professional mode, and I think this is a way that they calibrate the television, and I think it looks really good. And they do have some other settings like calm, which is going to be easier on your eyes. And they do have IMAX Enhanced that we find at the movie theaters. So no matter what kind of picture mode you put this TV in, I think it's going to look great. But for movies, you definitely want to put it in cinema mode. Another thing about this TV is when we put it in picture and sound mode, you have all kinds of adjustments. So you can reset your cinema mode, you can increase the brightness, clarity, motion. And down here at the bottom, I wouldn't really play with this too much, but you can also change the color space. So if you want to see the TV in Adobe BT 2020, you can see that it will change the content, but keep in mind when you play around with this, if you forget about it, some content won't look as clean. You also can put it in HDR mode like HDR10, HLG, so you have a couple of options there as well, even on SDR. And with the Apple TV, now I'm going to manually switch it over to HDR. And this is high dynamic range, which brings in a lot more brightness and details than SDR, but you might have some different tones and colors. Now the thing about HDR is that it brings in metadata, so basically takes control of the television, but you can go in and adjust some settings on it. I would say that this TV looks great on HDR, but in some cases I prefer SDR because it brings in a lot more colors and details. Now one thing I do notice in HDR is that the TV is much brighter. I did some adjustments on the camera, but as you can see here, this is in vivid mode and you can see the HDR in the corner there. This is your standard mode. You can see a huge difference in the change of the picture quality there. And I will say that the highlights are really blown out in vivid mode, so that's not something you want to use on a daily basis. Now we have cinema mode that makes it a lot warmer and detailed. We have that professional mode again. And just like the SDR, the IMAX Enhanced is available on HDR as well. So you can go in here and get the cinema-like picture on it. But I will say that when it comes to IMAX Enhanced, you will definitely want to watch movies that has the metadata so it can give you the best picture quality. And next we'll try out Dolby Vision. Keep in mind, Dolby Vision on a television like this will bring out a lot of details, but there's TVs that says Dolby Vision that doesn't have the high nits rating that this TV has, so it might not look as good. Now when it comes to Dolby Vision, the thing is that the TV will get a lot darker, depends on what you play through it. And I have it on Dolby Vision Dark, but if we move up to Vivid, it brings out a lot more details, and that's why they put that in this TV. In my opinion, Dolby Vision is subjective because if you have dark scenes like this on some TVs with low nits ratings, you won't have enough brightness in the TV to even see a scene like this. But as you can see, once we get onto a scene that has a lot of brightness in it, it definitely is going to show a difference in that dark scene. So Dolby Vision is going to look great on this television, but it's really going to depend on which scene you're watching, what content you're playing, and things like that. Now when it comes to skin tones, Sony's are really natural. I have the TV in cinema mode and it looks beautiful. And you can say this about most Sony televisions in general. The motion on this TV is pretty good, but there are some things you might want to watch out for. First of all, there's some settings inside the menu. Whenever you're getting a choppy scene, you can go in here and adjust a few things. So the demo and plan is 24 frames per second. And again, you can see at bottom line is a little choppy, but let's go up and just check out a couple things here. So first of all, you have a feature called motion flow. And what this is going to allow you to do is you're going to go in here and be able to make the picture smoother by controlling the processor. As far as movies, I think it's going to be decent, but it's not the smoothest I've ever seen, even on automatic mode. Now I want to check the dirty screen on this television, and I would say that it is almost perfect. As you notice, there's a slight vignetting as it gets into the gray level in the sides of it. But overall, this TV is really producing some very solid results when it comes to overall consistency of the screen from left to right, top to bottom. To keep everything fair, I will say that I did check out the blooming, and this TV does have some halo effect around images, especially if you're using a black and white scene. Now this is not something that you're going to see every day because it usually has content on it, but I like to be very transparent when I do these type of reviews. Now, as far as upscaling, the Sonys always do a great job. 480p is not something that you're going to watch every day, but this television does a decent job at upscaling this type of signal. And if you press the menu button on the remote control, you do have some different settings, so you can customize it to fill in the screen, especially if you have old content like on a VCR or something like that. But I will say that you can't completely stretch it all the way out. Now, there is a setting in here called wide mode, and you can fill up the screen this way, but as you can notice here, it's not completely filling up the screen. But like most TVs on the market, when you get up to 720p, 1080p, or even 4K, this television is going to look fantastic. And one thing I do like about this television is the processing is very smooth, and you can see on the built-in right there how smooth it is zooming in even on this 1080p. In some cases, it will lose a lot of resolution around the edges and show jaggedy lines, but this television is doing a great job as far as upscaling. As far as the audio system in this TV, it does have 4 speakers in it. It's 2 10-watt amplifiers, and I showed you those surround sound tweeters earlier. Now this TV will synchronize with Sony soundbars, and this allows you to use the TV as a center channel with those soundbars. And of course, you can hook up Bluetooth devices to it like headphones. and you do have that fiber optic so you can control that as well. And with this voice zoom feature, you're going to be able to amplify the voices coming out of the television, whether it's late night or if you're watching a movie. So now I'm going to let you hear what the TV speakers sound like, and it sounds the best if you have headphones on or audio system.
Sit quietly and experience the range of this TV's audio capabilities as we test the boundaries of sound.
Now we're going to check out gaming, starting off with the Xbox. Now one thing I want to point out here is that you have to put TV in gaming mode, and down here at the bottom you have your standard mode, your frames mode, RT, so you have different settings here. If you press and hold down the menu button on the remote control, you then get this gaming bar. Now with this gaming bar, you can see if the variable refresh rate is turned on, you can control your motion blur, black levels, screen size, and you do have a crosshair that's in the center of the screen, and you have different types for it as well. And the interesting thing, they have added YouTube quick search, and this allows you to search for different content on YouTube while you're gaming. And there's another new feature called Gaming Multi-View on YouTube. And this feature allows you to have your game on one side of the screen as well as YouTube on the other side of the screen. And this feature has individual controls for each side of the screen. So if you don't want to use it, you can change the size of the screen as well as go full screen, as you can see right here. So this is a really cool feature that they added to the television on this new lineup. And if you need to, they even have controls down here for the brightness if you want to make it vivid. Now back in the settings of the Xbox, you can see that this TV will support that 4K 120 Hz. It also supports the HDR gaming as well as Dolby Vision gaming at 120 Hz, which is cool, but keep in mind you want to use a HDMI 2.1 cable. And as you can see here, I have everything checked off, so it will be ready for gaming. Like I always say, make sure that the variable refresh rate is on gaming only. That way, if you're watching content like applications, it's not going to mess up that signal. Now we have the PlayStation 5 plugged in. Let's go and check out the settings on this device. And we want to go down here to screen and video. Now PlayStation is going to automatically show 60 Hz, but I will tell you when you load up a game that supports 120 Hz, it will automatically switch over. And you can see it on this screen where it says VRR. You can see it can support 48 Hz all the way up to 120 Hz. When we move over to 1080p, again, it will support up to 120 Hz. Now another thing I like to test here is that the PlayStation has a 1440p output test, but when I press on it, you can see that this device does not support 1440p outputs. Now I'm going to check the input lag, and as you can see here, I do have the TV in gaming mode, and keep in mind I am using a 1080p 60 frames per second tester, and it looks like we're getting about 33.7, 33.6 milliseconds. So I turned off the variable refresh rate on this input, and it did drop down to 17.1. Now it's not saying anything bad, just keep in mind variable refresh rate will control some of the different aspects of the television. To show you how that 120 Hz work, if you go into your video game options and make sure it's on high frame rate, if you press and hold down the menu button and look at the bottom, you can see that now it is showing 120 Hz and is flickering, and that's because of VRR is turned on. So again, this is an HDR10 BT 2020, and it will run at 120 Hz at 4K. Just kind of give you guys an update there. And if you need to, on some games, you can go in here and calibrate the brightness. And I would say at this brightness level, this TV is pretty blinding. Now, as this game loads, I just want to let you know you might see some flickering on the camera, and it's because it's hard to match up these cameras with the frame rates on the TV. So it does happen, but there's nothing wrong with it here live. Now, so far, the gaming is very smooth. And the fact that it's in the HDR, everything has that nice, warm, soft look to it. And the details on this TV is really good. I mean, it's smooth. I don't see any tearing or smearing or anything like that. So for gamers out there on the PS5, especially with the automatic HDR tone mapping on it, it's going to give you a great experience. And it'll work great on your Xbox or even computer if you have the right video card. So again, this is something to think about when gaming. This TV is well-rounded for movies and for gaming. The last thing we're going to do is just look at the menu system, and I will say that this TV is not the fastest that I've ever worked with. In fact, it is just slightly laggy. After you have it on for a while, it does get faster. But you have features like live TV, especially if you scan for channels. They'll appear right here at the top of the screen. You have an app store, and later on I will be calibrating this TV. If you see over here, there's an app over here called Calman for Bravia, and this allows you to connect the TV directly with a computer and calibrate it. So that's something that you guys can do on your own if you want to, but I will be doing that, just don't know when just yet. Now, speaking of calibration, this TV does have some new features. For example, for Netflix, you can have all your adjustments just made for the app, so you don't have to have a general settings. And if you use the built-in Sony app, there's also a calibrated setting that's set up by Sony and Netflix to make sure you get the best picture. Now keep in mind, the TV might look darker than you're used to, but calibrated settings mean it's very accurate, and you can control the brightness if you need to down here. And also want to show you that I pulled up Prime Video, and they also have a built-in calibration. So this is not something that you have to do. It's set up with Sony and the servers over at Amazon. So the calibrating settings are already preset from the factory. So if you're watching these type of content, you don't have to worry about having any kind of calibration settings in the television. It's going to be accurate as possible. Now Sony does have their own tab. Inside of here, you can do stuff like live-in decor. And this application allows you to set up screensavers, but Google does have one of these built in, but it allows you to customize, set up alarms, and do a few other things inside of TV so you can have a beautiful picture displaying at all times. Also, Sony renamed their Bravia Core to Sony Pictures Core. And if you watch these movies, then they're going to be up to 80 megabits per second. So that's going to give you near quality of Blu-ray. So just keep that in mind. Now keep in mind, some of these are paid applications, but last time I used it, they give you some credit so you can watch a few of them for free. Now, if we look down in the menu, something to be aware of is down here at the bottom where it says HDMI signal. If you're not getting 4K, you might need to switch this from standard to enhanced. Keep in mind, input 3 and 4 are HDMI 2.1s, and you'll need to switch this variable refresh rate on if you plan on playing that on a gaming console. The only downside with this, if you have a soundbar that uses HDMI, you'll have to give up one of your 120 Hz ports to support that audio. The last few things we'll take a look at. This TV is running off Android 12, so you're going to get the latest and greatest. And I did recently get a software update, not sure what it changed at this point. It also has 16 gigabytes of built-in storage for your applications. Now, since it is Google TV, it does have ambient mode, so you can still set up these wall arts and custom arts, show your weather, time, even your family pictures whenever you're not using the TV. And I do recommend, if you like to customize your own settings, make sure you go in here and turn off this automatic power saving mode. But if you put it on, you can have the TV to reduce the brightness to save electricity. And it has a few other features, like you can cast your Android device over to it. If you buy the Sony camera, you can do gestures. It also has a built-in mic on the front of it for hands-free Google voice commands. You can turn the indicator off and on. And it does have Apple AirPlay and HomeKit. So even if you have the HomePod or computer, once this TV is connected, you can turn it off and on and set up some different routines completely with your Apple devices. Now, I'm not saying you should do this, but if you need to, you can lock all your picture settings once you get everything set up. But don't forget your password because you'll have to reset the TV. And the last thing down here, it is Bluetooth compatible like the remote control I'm using. Plus, you can also add your own headphones, which I showed you earlier. And this is for professional use. This TV can be connected to a remote control system to control the television, which is great if you have one of those expensive audio systems. So that's the operating system. And again, you can go up here and do voice commands with the remote and search for different things, tell jokes, pull up applications. So there's plenty in here to play around with. Now, if you wonder about having light on this television, this is an anti-glare test here to show the coating on the television. As you see, it will show some reflection off of the television. It's not going to be like a pure mirror, but it does do a decent job at it. But keep in mind, if you have a lot of windows in your room, there's no way around it. You just need to get some curtains or something like that to make sure you don't experience glare on any television. When it comes to viewing angles, sitting right in front of the TV is the sweet spot because it is a VA panel. But if you go off axis, I say you can get about 78 degrees before you start seeing coloration in the image. As a reviewer, I want to use this video as a reference point. So if you're thinking about buying this TV, you can come back and watch and see what kind of options this TV have. And a lot of these options are on the Bravia 8 and 9. For the average person who loves Sony, I think this is a great television. You can't beat the color science, the built-in calibration, and the fact that this TV has a lot of robust features, I think you're going to be happy with it. So that's what I'm really going to say about this TV. I know a lot of people want to break down to all these technical specs and try to, say things are bad. I'm going to say that if you're not going to spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, you're going to get a TV that's bright and it's going to give you a lot of years of enjoyment. I'm Tech Steve. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.